all of our code basically is going to be inside this async function main, which is going to be our main script for deploying our simple storage.sol. So our deploy script is going to replicate exactly what goes on in Remix. In Remix, what was the first thing that we always did? Well, the first thing that we would do is actually compile all of our code. So we're going to want to compile our code in our JavaScript project as well. In order for us to compile our simple storage contract, we're going to use a tool called Solidity.js. Now, JavaScript actually has a way to install projects directly into our setups and into our folders. If we scroll down, this Solidity.js is exactly what we're looking for because it has a way to compile a contract that imports other contracts via relative paths. You can see a section in this README, and most documentation will have something like this if it's JavaScript compatible for Node.js usage. It says to use the latest stable version of the Solidity compiler via Node.js, you can install it via npm install Silk. npm is what's known as a package manager. And we actually installed npm just by installing Node.js, right? If we do node -- version, you should also be able to do npm -- version. Another tool that it comes with is something called Corpack. And you can type Corpack -- version. Now we can install with npm using npm install Silk. However, I like the Yarn package manager a little bit better. So we're actually going to install the Yarn package manager instead to do all of our package management. If you go to the installation page, the newer way to install Yarn is just by running Corpack enable, and the older way is to install with npm. If you go ahead and run Corpack enable, after that finishes, you should be able to run Yarn -- version. Alternatively, you can just run npm i-g Corpack, and then you can run Corpack enable. The last option you have is you can run npm i-g yarn. This will install Yarn globally for your system, but this is considered the outdated way to install Yarn, and ideally you run Corpack enable. But in any case, after you run those, if you run Yarn -- version, you should get something that looks like this. Now that we have Yarn, we can actually use Yarn to install all of our projects instead of npm. Back in Solidity.js, where it says npm install Solk, we can do the Yarn equivalence of npm install Solk, which is going to be Yarn add Solk. This will actually go ahead and install Solk to our project. If we open up our folders, you'll actually see that this added a couple of different folders. It first added a package.json. Package.json is a file that tells us a lot about our project and the dependencies that it works with. For example, we've installed the Solk package of 0.8.13. Our yarn.lock tells us the exact version of all the different packages of our project. For example, the reason this is so important too is Solk has a ton of dependencies as well. So yarn.lock tells us exactly what version of Solk and all the different dependencies of Solk and any other project that we add. This is an auto-generated file. Don't edit the file directly. The final bit is we get this node modules folder. This node modules folder is going to be where all the installed code that we just downloaded is. For example, if we look in node modules, we can see there's a Solk folder, and inside this Solk folder is all the code associated with this Solk package that we just installed. And since we're working with 0.8.7 of Solidity, we actually want to install that specific version. So we're going to do yarn add Solk at 0.8.7 -fixed. And you'll see in our package.json, you can now see 0.8.7 -fixed in our dependencies section for Solk. Normally, you can just add your Solk version like yarn add 0.8.7, but there was an issue with 0.8.7, so we had to do 0.8.7 -fixed. You can find the different releases and the different versions if you go to Solidity.js releases and then to tags. All right, great. Now that we have Solk, we have the ability to actually compile our contracts. We could either compile them in our code and have it automatically run whenever we hit deploy, or we could compile them separately. If you want to go back after this section, there's an example in the Solidity.js repository that shows you how to actually compile Solk right in your code. We are actually going to compile them separately using a Solidity.js command. The yarn command is both used to install dependencies and it can be used to run scripts. If you go to Solidity.js and you scroll down, it says in order to use the command line, you actually need to install it globally. If you want to install this globally using yarn global add sulk at 0.8.7-fixed, you can absolutely go ahead. However, since we're inside of this folder here, which has the yarn.lock, the package.json, and the node modules, Yarn will be smart enough to know, you're looking for the sulk in this folder. So we can actually go ahead and compile our contract using Yarn and Solidity.js. If you want to see all the different commands Solidity.js allows, we can just run yarn Solidity.js --help. And you'll see it'll spit out a list of all the different options that Solidity.js has. You can also run yarn Solidity.js --version to just make sure that we're on the correct version, which is indeed 0.8.7. Now, to actually compile our simple storage.sol, let's run the compilation command. We'll run yarn Solidity.js --bin, since we want the binary, --abi, since we also want the ABI, --include path node modules, since we want to include any contracts or files in our node modules. We aren't using any for this project, but in the future, you will need to include this --include path node modules. We'll do --base path of period. This period means that the base path is going to be this folder, -o period, which means we're going to output the compiled binary and ABI to this folder. And then finally, simple storage.sol, since this is the contract that we want to compile. I auto-completed it from simple storage to simple storage.sol by typing simple and then hitting tab. But let's go ahead and hit enter. You'll see it's running this command to compile this contract. And you'll see two files get output, one called simple storage sol _ simple storage.abi and simple storage sol _ simple storage.bin. The ABI is obviously the ABI of this contract, which we'll need in the future. And then the bin is going to be the binary, or the really low level of this code. Back in Remix, if you compile simple storage.sol, you can actually look at compilation details like the ABI, which we just got, or the bytecode, which if you look at this object, 60806, that's the same as the binary here, 60806. All right, great. So now we've compiled our contracts here. Now, obviously, if you hit up on your keyboard, you can actually cycle through your most recent terminal commands. And if you hit up enough, we can see this command that we just ran. Typing this out or hitting up a whole bunch every single time is going to be really annoying to do anytime we want to recompile. So what we can do is we can add a scripts section in our package.json to shorten some yarn scripts for us. So what we'll do is back on our package.json, we'll add a comma and we'll add a section called scripts. Add the colon and the brackets. And in here, we'll say anytime we say compile, we will run this long command. So we'll add compile, we'll put some quotes, and we'll paste that in there. So now, instead of typing that whole thing out, as long as we're in the same folder that our package.json is in, we can run yarn compile, and this will run that whole script for us without us having to type the whole thing out. Scripts are a really useful way to make it easier for us to run long commands. All right, great. Now we have our code compiled. This is going to be equivalent to us hitting this compile button for us to actually go ahead and deploy.